The Alpha King had conquered enemies, defeated rogue wolves, and ruled the largest kingdom in the realm. Everyone believed he was unstoppable, until the day he suddenly collapsed. No battle, no poison, no warning. One moment, he was standing before his people. Next, he was fighting for his life. The kingdom panicked. The best healers were summoned from every corner of the realm. One healer failed, then another, until 14 of the most powerful healers had exhausted every spell, every remedy, and every secret they knew. Nothing worked. Each sunrise brought the Alpha King closer to death. His powerful wolf, once feared across the continent, was fading away. His strength vanished. His eyes lost their light, and soon whispers of his funeral began spreading through the kingdom. But just when all hope seemed lost, the oldest healer in the realm stepped forward with a solution that shocked everyone. A solution that made the Alpha King's blood run cold. "There is still one person who might save you," the old healer said. The room fell silent. The Alpha's jaw tightened, because before the healer even spoke the name, he already knew who it was. A girl he had spent 3 years trying to forget. His true mate. The Omega he had publicly rejected before the entire kingdom. The girl whose tears he ignored. The girl whose heart he shattered. The girl he allowed everyone else to humiliate. The very girl he had chosen to abandon. Now she was the only person standing between him and death. But what nobody knew was that her return would uncover a terrible secret buried deep within the kingdom. A secret involving betrayal, lies, and a truth so dangerous it could destroy everything the Alpha King thought he knew. And when that truth finally came to light, the kingdom would never be the same again. 3 years had passed since Elara had left the kingdom. 3 years since the day her mate rejected her before thousands of wolves. 3 years since she had walked away with tears burning her eyes and a broken heart she thought would never heal. Yet somehow she survived. The small village of Silver Creek sat far from the royal capital, hidden between green hills and thick forests. Life there was simple, peaceful. It was exactly what Elara needed. Unlike the nobles of the capital, nobody in Silver Creek cared that she had once been the Alpha King's rejected mate. To them, she was simply Elara, the gentle healer who never turned away a sick child, the young woman who delivered medicine to elderly wolves during winter storms, the kind soul who spent sleepless nights caring for injured rogues when nobody else would. That morning was no different. The warm sunlight spilled through the windows of her small healing cottage. Elara carefully wrapped a bandage around the arm of a young wolf boy who had fallen from a tree. "There," she said softly. The boy grinned. "Thank you, Miss Elara." She smiled and ruffled his hair. "Try not to challenge the trees to another battle." The boy laughed. His mother thanked her repeatedly before leading him outside. As the door closed, silence settled over the room. Elara released a slow breath. Moments like these made her happy. Moments like these reminded her that life continued even after heartbreak, or at least that was what she tried to believe. Because some wounds never fully healed. Somewhere deep inside her heart remained the memory of a tall alpha with dark eyes and a proud smile. A memory she had spent 3 years trying to forget. A sudden knock interrupted her thoughts. 3 sharp knocks. Urgent. Unusual. Elara frowned. Most villagers simply walked inside. She crossed the room and opened the door. A tall wolf stood outside wearing royal armor. The silver crest of the kingdom gleamed across his chest. Immediately, her stomach tightened. The capital, the palace, memories she had buried suddenly clawed their way back to the surface. The messenger bowed respectfully. Lady Elara. Nobody had called her that in years. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. The messenger hesitated. His expression darkened. "The Alpha King is dying." The words struck her harder than she expected. For a moment, she simply stared. Dying? Her mate? The man she had once imagined spending her entire life beside? No, not her mate anymore. He had made sure of that. The messenger continued. 14 healers have already failed. Elara's fingers tightened around the doorframe. The messenger lowered his voice. The kingdom needs your help. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Elara shook her head. No. The messenger blinked. My lady. No. This time her voice was firmer. The messenger looked shocked. Most people would have expected anger, hatred, bitterness. But that wasn't why she refused. She wasn't refusing because she hated him. She was refusing because she was afraid. Afraid of seeing him again. Afraid of discovering that her heart still remembered him. Afraid of reopening wounds that had taken years to close. The messenger seemed to understand. His expression softened. Lady Elara. She looked away. The Alpha may not survive another week. Silence. He specifically requested that I come personally. Her heart skipped. What? The messenger nodded. He asked for you. Elara froze. The Alpha King had asked for her? After everything? After 3 years? That made no sense. Unless he truly had run out of options. The realization hurt more than she expected. Not because he needed her, but because he only needed her now, after everyone else had failed, after she was the last choice remaining. The messenger bowed again. Please. For the first time, desperation entered his voice. The kingdom is losing its king. Elara closed her eyes. 1,000 painful memories rushed through her mind. The rejection ceremony, the humiliation, the whispers, the tears. Yet beneath all that pain remained something she wished would disappear. Love, stubborn, foolish, unwanted love. Slowly, she opened her eyes. When do we leave? The messenger released a breath of relief. Immediately. The journey lasted 2 days, 2 long days filled with memories she desperately tried to ignore. By the time the royal palace appeared on the horizon, her heart was pounding. Nothing had changed. The massive towers still rose above the city. The silver banners still fluttered in the wind. The palace looked exactly as it had 3 years ago. Only Elara had changed, or so she hoped. As she entered the palace gates, whispers immediately followed. Servants stared. Guards exchanged glances. Everyone recognized her. The rejected mate had returned. Inside the palace, tension filled every hallway. Fear lingered in the air. The atmosphere felt heavy, like a kingdom waiting for disaster. Finally, the messenger stopped before a large chamber. The Alpha is inside. Elara swallowed. Her pulse quickened. 3 years. 3 years since she had last seen him. The doors opened, and there he was, Alpha King Adrian, the most powerful wolf in the kingdom, or at least he had been. The sight nearly broke her heart. He looked pale, weak, far too thin. Dark shadows rested beneath his eyes. The proud Alpha she once knew seemed almost unrecognizable. For a moment, his gaze lifted. Their eyes met. Silence filled the room. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. 1,000 unspoken emotions passed between them. Regret, pain, guilt, longing. Then Adrian looked away first, unable to hold her gaze, because unlike her, he remembered exactly what he had done, and the guilt was already consuming him. Elara slowly approached the bed, professional, calm, controlled, at least on the outside. Inside, her heart was a storm. She reached for his wrist. The moment her fingers touched his skin, something felt wrong. Very wrong. Her expression changed instantly. She checked again, then again. Her eyes narrowed. The room grew silent. One of the healers stepped forward. "Did you find something?" Elara didn't answer. Instead, she examined the faint dark veins spreading beneath Adrian's skin. Veins nobody else had noticed. Veins that should not exist. A cold feeling settled in her chest. This wasn't an illness. This wasn't natural. This wasn't something 14 healers could cure, because someone had never intended for him to be cured. Someone had intended for him to die, and hidden beneath the Alpha King's skin was undeniable evidence of a forbidden curse. The discovery of the curse changed everything. For months, the kingdom had believed their Alpha King was suffering from a mysterious illness. Now they knew the truth. Someone had deliberately targeted him. Someone wanted the strongest Alpha in the kingdom dead. The news was kept secret. Only a handful of trusted people were informed. If word spread beyond the palace walls, panic would consume the kingdom. Elara spent the entire night studying the dark veins beneath Adrian's skin. Ancient books were brought from the royal archives. Rare scrolls were uncovered. Several healers assisted her. Yet the more she learned, the more dangerous the situation appeared. The curse wasn't merely draining his strength, it was slowly consuming his wolf. Once the process was complete, even death would be merciful compared to what remained. The realization chilled her. For the first time in years, she looked at Adrian not as the man who had broken her heart, but as someone she genuinely feared losing. The next morning, she began a treatment no healer had attempted before. The process required her rare healing abilities, magic that flowed through her bloodline, magic she rarely revealed to anyone. Golden light gathered around her fingertips. The room fell silent. Even the experienced healers stared in amazement. The warm glow slowly spread through Adrian's body. The dark veins reacted immediately. For several terrifying moments, nothing happened. Hope exploded through the palace. Servants smiled again. Guards stood taller. The atmosphere that had felt like a funeral slowly began to change. Even Adrian himself seemed different. His strength hadn't returned completely, but color had begun returning to his face. His eyes looked brighter, and each day he found himself watching Elara more closely. At first, he told himself it was because she was his healer, nothing more. Yet the more he watched her, the harder it became to ignore certain truths. She treated everyone with kindness. Not just him. Everyone. The servants. The guards. The kitchen workers. The stable boys. Even the healers, who had mocked her when she first arrived. She never spoke harshly. Never sought revenge. Never reminded anyone of how badly she had been treated. The woman standing before him now was nothing like the selfish image he had once been convinced to believe. And that realization hurt, because it forced him to confront an uncomfortable question. Had he ever truly known her? One afternoon, Elara was organizing herbs in the palace garden when Adrian appeared. The moment she noticed him approaching, her heart skipped, not because she wanted it to, but because some feelings were stubborn. The alpha stopped beside her. For several seconds, neither spoke. The silence felt strangely awkward. Once, conversation between them had been effortless. Now every word seemed trapped behind years of regret. Finally, Adrian cleared his throat. "You always preferred moon lilies." Elara looked up, surprised. Among the hundreds of flowers surrounding them, she had indeed chosen moon lilies. The same flowers she used to gather years ago. "You remembered?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. A faint smile appeared on Adrian's face. Small, almost sad. "I remember more than you think." Their eyes met. Neither looked away. For a brief moment, the years separating them seemed to disappear. Neither noticed the figure watching from a nearby balcony. Luna Selena. Her expression darkened. Her fingers tightened against the railing. She hated the way Adrian looked at Elara, hated the way his voice softened around her, hated the way he seemed more alive whenever she entered a room. It wasn't supposed to be this way. Adrian was supposed to love her. Yet lately, his attention had been drifting elsewhere, and Selena knew exactly where it was going. Days passed. The treatments continued. Adrian's recovery accelerated. The palace celebrated every improvement. But while everyone else focused on the Alpha's recovery, Elara focused on something else: the curse. Because despite weakening it, she still couldn't answer one critical question. How had it entered the palace? Ancient curses didn't simply appear. Someone had to cast them. Someone had to maintain them. One evening, while examining Adrian's chamber, she discovered something unusual. A faint black symbol hidden beneath a decorative table. Most people would never have noticed it, but Elara immediately recognized it. Her blood ran cold. It was a feeding mark, a symbol used to strengthen dark magic. The curse was still receiving power, meaning someone was actively helping it survive, someone inside the palace. Her heart began racing. She searched the room further. Soon she found another symbol, then another, each one carefully hidden, each one impossible to place by accident. The implications were terrifying. The enemy wasn't outside the kingdom. The enemy wasn't hiding in some distant forest. The enemy was here, inside the palace, walking the same hallways, breathing the same air, perhaps even standing beside them every day. That night Elara couldn't sleep. The discovery haunted her thoughts. If someone was maintaining the curse, they would eventually return. And if they realized she was getting closer to the truth, she could become a target. Near midnight, she left her room to investigate. The palace corridors were nearly empty. Moonlight spilled through the tall windows. Everything seemed quiet, too quiet. As she rounded a corner, movement caught her eye. Someone was slipping through a side entrance. A woman. Elara immediately recognized her. Luna Selena. Confusion flickered across her face. What was Selena doing outside at this hour? Curiosity overcame caution. Keeping her distance, Elara followed. The Luna moved quickly through the palace gardens, past the fountains, past the eastern wall, toward the forest beyond. Elara remained hidden among the shadows. Eventually, Selena stopped near a clearing. And then, someone emerged from the darkness. A tall figure dressed in a black hooded cloak. The stranger's face remained hidden. Selena looked around nervously before speaking. Elara couldn't hear the words, but she didn't need to, because what happened next told her everything. The hooded stranger handed Selena a small black object. An object covered in the same symbols Elara had discovered in Adrian's chamber. Her pulse exploded. The curse, the symbols, the secret meetings. Suddenly everything began connecting. Hidden behind a tree, Elara watched in shock as the Luna accepted the object and whispered something to the mysterious stranger. And at that moment, a terrifying possibility entered her mind. What if the person helping the curse wasn't merely working inside the palace? What if it was Luna herself? As Selena turned to leave, the hooded stranger grabbed her arm and spoke 4 chilling words that made Elara's blood freeze. Has the Alpha suspected anything? Elara barely slept that night. The image of Luna Selena meeting the hooded stranger replayed endlessly in her mind. The mysterious object, the dark symbols, the stranger's question, has the Alpha suspected anything? None of it felt like a coincidence. Something dangerous was happening inside the palace. And somehow, the curse, the Luna, and Adrian's condition were all connected. The next morning, Elara returned to the royal archives. Dust-covered books towered around her. Ancient records filled the shelves. If someone had been manipulating events for years, there had to be evidence somewhere. Hours passed, then another, and just when exhaustion began settling into her bones, she found something unexpected. A file, old, hidden behind several records. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The date immediately caught her attention. 3 years ago, the year of her rejection. Her pulse quickened. She began reading. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Witness reports, official statements, records from the Royal Council. Then, suddenly she froze. Something wasn't right. Several testimonies had matching handwriting, different names, different signatures, yet the writing style was identical. Someone had forged them. Her heart pounded harder. She continued searching. The deeper she dug, the more disturbing the evidence became. Documents had been altered. Reports had disappeared. Witness statements had been rewritten. And every trail pointed toward one conclusion. The scandal that destroyed her life had been carefully constructed, piece by piece, lie by lie. Someone had wanted Adrian to believe she betrayed him. Someone had wanted their bond destroyed. The realization left her shaken. For years, she had convinced herself that Adrian simply didn't love her enough. But what if the truth was more complicated? What if someone had manipulated him too? A painful memory surfaced. 3 years ago, the Grand Hall. Hundreds of wolves watching. The humiliation, the whispers, the accusations. She could still hear Adrian's voice, cold, heartless, disappointed. The voice of a man who genuinely believed she had betrayed him. Back then she thought he hated her. Now she wasn't so sure. Maybe he had simply been deceived. The thought didn't erase the pain, but it changed something. For the first time in years, she wondered if he had suffered too. Meanwhile, Adrian was fighting a battle of his own, not against the curse, against his heart. Every day he found himself searching for Elara. Every conversation lingered in his mind. Every smile she gave someone else somehow affected him. It was infuriating and confusing because these feelings should have disappeared years ago, yet somehow they were stronger than ever. One afternoon, he watched from his balcony as Elara treated an injured servant. The servant was frightened, embarrassed, apologizing repeatedly. Elara simply smiled. "It's all right." Her voice was gentle, patient, kind. The servant immediately relaxed. Adrian felt something twist inside his chest. He remembered another day, years ago, before everything went wrong, before the rejection, before the lies. She had smiled at him the exact same way, and suddenly a question entered his mind. What if I made the biggest mistake of my life? The thought refused to leave. Over the next several days, Elara worked tirelessly, treating the curse, investigating the mystery, searching for answers, sleeping very little, eating even less. Her determination worried everyone, including Adrian. One evening she remained alone in the healing chamber long after sunset. Ancient books covered the table, notes surrounded her, candles burned low, her vision blurred. She rubbed her eyes, tried to focus, but her body had reached its limit. The room spun. A wave of dizziness hit her, then darkness. When Elara opened her eyes again, she felt movement, strong arms, warmth, a familiar scent. Confused, she blinked and immediately froze. Adrian was carrying her. His arms supported her effortlessly as he walked through the palace corridors. For a moment, neither spoke. Elara's heart immediately betrayed her. It began racing, just like it always. She looked away, embarrassed. I still had work to do, and if you work yourself into the grave. His tone carried frustration, but beneath it she heard something else. Concern. Real concern. The realization made her chest tighten. When they reached her room, Adrian gently placed her on the bed. Neither seemed eager to break the silence. For several seconds they simply looked at each other. The atmosphere felt different, more intimate, more vulnerable. Years of walls suddenly felt fragile. Finally, Adrian spoke. Why? Elara frowned. Why what? Why are you doing all this? His eyes never left hers. After everything I did, pain flickered across his face. The guilt was impossible to hide. After everything that happened, why are you still trying to save me? The question hung between them. Elara swallowed. Because she didn't know how to answer honestly. Because the truth was dangerous. Because a part of her still loved him. Even now. Instead, she simply said, because it's the right thing to do. Adrian stared at her, then slowly shook his head. No. His voice broke slightly. You're helping me because you're a better person than I deserve. Silence followed, heavy, emotional, raw. Then something happened that Elara never expected. The Alpha King lowered his gaze, not as a ruler, not as a king, not as the most powerful wolf in the kingdom, but as a man carrying years of regret. "I'm sorry." The words were barely above a whisper, yet they hit harder than any shout. Elara froze. 3 years. 3 years she had waited to hear those words. 3 years of pain. 3 years of unanswered questions. And now he was finally saying them, not because anyone forced him, not because it was politically necessary, but because he meant it. "I'm sorry for hurting you." His voice trembled. "I'm sorry for not listening." He looked away, ashamed. "And I'm sorry for the pain I caused." Elara felt tears threatening to surface, but before she could respond, a sudden noise came from outside. A voice, then another. Her healer instincts immediately returned. She stood, ignoring Adrian's protests. Something felt wrong, very wrong. Minutes later, while passing through one of the palace corridors, she heard familiar voices drifting from a nearby room. She recognized one instantly, Selena, the Luna. Elara stopped, hidden by the shadows, listening carefully. At first the conversation was unclear. Then she heard the words that made her blood run cold. "You promised nobody would ever discover the truth." Selena's voice sounded angry, terrified. Another voice answered, a man's voice, cold, calculating. "Relax. There is no evidence left." Selena laughed bitterly. "No evidence?" Her voice rose. "We forged documents. We bribed witnesses. We framed the Omega." Elara's heart stopped. Everything around her seemed to disappear, because at that moment, she finally heard the truth she had been searching for. The truth was hidden for 3 long years. Selena had helped frame her. Selena had helped destroy her bond with Adrian, and the rejection that shattered her life had been built on lies. Then the mysterious man spoke again, and his next sentence revealed something even worse. "The Alpha can never learn who truly ordered it." Elara stood frozen outside the chamber. Her heart pounded violently against her ribs. Every word she had just heard felt like a dagger piercing old wounds she had spent years trying to heal. "We forged documents. We bribed witnesses. We framed the Omega." The confession echoed endlessly in her mind. For 3 years she had blamed herself. For 3 years she had wondered what she could have done differently. For 3 years she had relived the humiliation of that rejection ceremony. And now she finally knew the truth. She had never betrayed Adrian. She had never broken his trust. She had never done any of the things she had been accused of. The entire scandal had been a lie, a carefully planned lie, a lie that destroyed 2 lives. Before the voices inside could discover her, Elara quietly slipped away. Her hands trembled, not from fear, from heartbreak, because knowing the truth didn't erase the pain. It simply gave that pain a face. The next morning, Elara requested a private meeting with Adrian. The Alpha immediately agreed. The moment she entered his chamber, he noticed something was wrong. Her eyes looked troubled. Her expression was unusually serious. "What happened?" Adrian asked. Elara closed the door behind her. For several seconds she remained silent. Then she placed several documents on the table between them. The forged testimonies, the altered reports, the evidence she had uncovered. Adrian frowned. "What is this?" "The truth." The words were soft, yet they carried enough weight to change everything. As Adrian began reading, confusion appeared on his face, then disbelief, then anger, and finally, horror. Page after page exposed the lies, the witnesses who had been bribed, the reports that had been altered, the accusations that had been fabricated. The evidence was overwhelming. By the time he reached the final document, his hands were shaking. "No," the word escaped him as little more than a whisper. "This can't be." But deep down, he already knew it was true. His mind drifted back 3 years. The rejection ceremony, the accusations against Elara, the evidence presented before the council. At the time, everything had seemed undeniable. Now he realized how perfectly he had been manipulated. A crushing weight settled over his chest, not because he had been deceived, but because of what that deception had cost. The woman he rejected was innocent. The woman he trusted had lied. The woman he humiliated had loved him, and he had destroyed her anyway. For a long time, Adrian said nothing. The silence inside the room felt suffocating. Finally, he looked up. His eyes were filled with pain. "All this time," his voice cracked, "all this time you were telling the truth." Elara looked away. She couldn't bear seeing the guilt on his face, because despite everything, part of her still wanted to comfort him, and that terrified her. Adrian slowly stood. His entire world felt as though it had shattered. Every decision he had made, every belief he had held, every memory he trusted, nothing felt certain anymore. The woman he rejected had been innocent. The woman he chose had betrayed him, and the realization was almost unbearable. By afternoon, the palace was in chaos. Adrian ordered Luna Selena brought before the royal council. The entire court gathered. Nobles filled the chamber. Council members whispered anxiously. Everyone sensed something major was about to happen. Selena entered confidently. At first, then she saw the documents, the evidence, the witnesses, and for the first time, genuine fear appeared in her eyes. Adrian stood from his throne. His voice echoed throughout the hall. "You lied to me." Silence. "You lied to this kingdom." Selena's confidence crumbled. The accusations came one after another. The forged reports, the false witnesses, the fabricated scandal. Piece by piece, her deception was exposed. Gasps erupted throughout the chamber. Shock spread through the nobles. Nobody could believe what they were hearing. The Luna had framed the Alpha's true mate. The Luna had destroyed the bond chosen by the moon goddess. The Luna had manipulated the future king himself. Finally, Adrian pointed toward the guards. "Arrest her." The guards stepped forward. But instead of begging, instead of denying the accusations, Selena laughed. The sound chilled the entire room. Everyone froze. Even Adrian. A strange smile appeared on her face. "You really think this was my idea?" The room fell silent. Adrian narrowed his eyes. "What are you talking about?" Selena's laughter faded. Fear returned. But there was something else now. Resentment, bitterness, hatred. "You still don't understand." Her gaze moved around the chamber, then settled on Adrian. "I didn't act alone." The words struck like thunder. Murmurs spread instantly. Adrian's expression darkened. "Who helped you?" For a moment, Selena hesitated, as though deciding whether to speak. Then finally she smiled. A smile filled with dangerous satisfaction. "The person behind everything is someone you trust." Silence. "The person who ordered your mate's downfall is someone respected throughout the kingdom." More silence. "The person who manipulated us all is still inside this palace." A chill swept through the chamber. Fear spread through the nobles. Because if Selena was telling the truth, the true enemy remained free, and nobody knew who it was. Before she could reveal more, the palace doors suddenly burst open. A healer rushed inside. Panic covered his face. "Your Majesty!" Adrian turned. The healer looked terrified. "The curse." Immediately, every eye focused on him. "The curse has become unstable." Elara's heart dropped. "No, not now. Not after everything." The healer swallowed hard. "The Alpha's condition is worsening again." Within minutes, the council meeting ended. Everyone rushed toward the healing wing. The moment Elara saw Adrian, she knew something had changed. The dark veins beneath his skin had spread, far faster than before. His breathing was uneven. His wolf was weakening. The curse had adapted. Whatever force was feeding it had grown stronger. Fear tightened around her heart. She spent the next several hours searching every book available, every scroll, every forgotten piece of healing knowledge. The answer had to exist somewhere. It had to. Finally, near dawn, she found it. An ancient ritual, older than the kingdom itself. A cure, a real cure. For the first time in days, hope appeared. Then she kept reading, and that hope vanished. Her hands began trembling. The ritual could save Adrian. It could completely destroy the curse. But there was a cost, a terrible cost. The curse couldn't simply disappear. It had to be transferred from one soul to another. Tears slowly filled her eyes because she already knew what that meant. There was only one person capable of surviving the transfer long enough to complete the ritual. Her. The cure existed, but it demanded a sacrifice. And if she chose to save Adrian, she would almost certainly die. Alone in the healing chamber, Elara stared at the ancient ritual and whispered the words she prayed she would never have to say. "I know how to save him." A tear slipped down her cheek. "But it will cost me my life." The ancient book slipped from Elara's trembling hands. The sound echoed through the silent healing chamber. For several seconds, she simply stared at the floor. Her mind refused to accept what she had just read. A cure existed. After weeks of fear, weeks of uncertainty, weeks of watching Adrian slowly die, there was finally a way to save him. Yet fate had attached a cruel condition. One life for another, one soul in exchange for another. The curse could not be destroyed. It could only be transferred. And once the transfer began, there would be no turning back. A tear slid down her cheek, not because she feared death, but because she had finally found him again. After 3 years apart, after 3 years of heartbreak, after all the pain, all the misunderstandings, all the lies, they had finally started finding their way back to each other. And now fate was asking her to let him go once more. Or perhaps this time, it was asking her to let herself go. The following morning, Elara gathered the royal healers. The room fell silent as she explained the ritual. Every face turned pale. Shock spread across the chamber. "No." One healer immediately shook his head. "There must be another way." Another healer agreed. "We'll continue searching. We'll find something." But Elara already knew the truth. There wasn't another way. The curse had evolved beyond anything they could stop. Time was running out. Every hour brought Adrian closer to death. Every hour strengthened the darkness inside him. The choice had already been made, at least in her heart. Unfortunately, someone overheard the conversation. Someone who refused to accept it. The doors burst open. Adrian entered the chamber. His face was pale. His breathing is uneven, but the fury burning in his eyes was unmistakable. Everyone immediately stepped aside. His gaze locked onto Elara. "You are not doing it." The room froze. Elara swallowed. "Adrian." "No." His voice echoed through the chamber. The command of a king, the authority of an alpha. Yet beneath it lurked something much deeper. Fear. Raw, desperate fear. "You are not sacrificing yourself for me." The room fell silent. The healers exchanged uneasy glances. Nobody dared interrupt. Elara stepped closer. "You heard everything." "I heard enough." His jaw tightened. "I forbid it." The words hung heavily between them. For a moment, Elara almost smiled, because after everything, after years of believing she meant nothing to him, he was terrified of losing her. Yet this wasn't a battle she could allow him to win. "You cannot forbid me." The words left her gently, but firmly. Adrian stared at her. Disbelief crossed his face. "I am your king, and I am your healer." The tension between them intensified. Neither looked away. Neither backed down. Finally, Elara whispered the truth she had hidden for far too long. "If I don't do this, you will die." The words shattered whatever strength remained in him. Silence followed, heavy, painful, heartbreaking, because neither of them could deny it. The curse was winning, and time was running out. That evening, the palace felt unusually quiet. Storm clouds gathered above the kingdom. Thunder rumbled in the distance, almost as though the heavens themselves sensed what was coming. Elara stood alone on a balcony, overlooking the royal gardens. The cool night breeze brushed against her face. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to remember everything. The first time she met Adrian. The first time their wolves recognized each other. The dreams they once shared. The future they almost had. A small smile touched her lips. Despite everything, she had never stopped loving him. Not completely. Part of her heart had always belonged to him. Perhaps it always would. Footsteps approached. She didn't need to turn around. She recognized them instantly. "Adrian." He stopped beside her. Neither spoke for several moments. The silence felt strangely peaceful. Eventually, Adrian broke it. "You should hate me." Elara glanced toward him. His eyes remained fixed on the moonlit gardens below. "I gave you every reason to." His voice sounded tired. "Broken. I hurt you." The guilt in his expression was impossible to ignore. "I failed you." He swallowed. "And somehow you're still trying to save me." Elara looked away, because hearing him speak like that hurt, not because he was wrong, but because she could see how much he regretted it. Some wounds never healed completely, yet regret created wounds of its own. And Adrian had been carrying his for years. Neither realized it would be their last peaceful conversation. The next morning, the ritual began. The entire palace gathered. Healers filled the chamber. Council members stood silently. Servants prayed. Guards watched nervously. The kingdom's fate rested upon a single decision. Elara stood beside Adrian. Ancient symbols glowed across the floor. Golden light surrounded them. The atmosphere felt sacred, dangerous, final. Adrian grabbed her wrist. His grip tightened. His eyes met hers. For a moment, neither spoke. Then quietly he said, "Please don't do this." The desperation in his voice nearly shattered her resolve. But she smiled gently, the same smile he had fallen in love with years ago. And then she stepped into position. The ritual began. Golden energy exploded through the chamber. Ancient symbols ignited. The curse reacted instantly. Darkness erupted from Adrian's body. The black veins spread violently beneath his skin. The room shook. Several healers stumbled backward. Others struggled to remain standing. The darkness twisted like a living creature, fighting, resisting, refusing to leave. But Elara remained steady. Golden light poured from her hands, brighter, stronger, more powerful than ever before. The curse screamed, a horrifying sound that echoed throughout the chamber. Then slowly, the darkness began moving, leaving Adrian, crossing the space between them, entering Elara. Gasps filled the room. The transfer had begun. Adrian collapsed to one knee. Then suddenly, the darkness vanished from his body completely. Silence followed. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then the impossible happened. Color returned to Adrian's face. His wolf reawakened. Strength flooded back into his body. The curse was gone. The Alpha King was healed. Cheers erupted. The room exploded with celebration. Healers cried. Servants embraced each other. Guards shouted with joy. The kingdom had been saved. But the celebration lasted only seconds. Because suddenly, Elara collapsed. The room went silent. Adrian's heart stopped. No. He reached her instantly, catching her before she hit the floor. Her skin felt cold, far too cold. Dark veins slowly appeared beneath her skin, the same veins that had nearly killed him. The curse now belonged to her. Panic spread through the chamber. The healers rushed forward, but one look told them everything. The ritual had worked, exactly as intended, and that was the problem. The curse had transferred completely. There was nothing left to stop, nothing left to reverse. For the first time since becoming king, Adrian looked completely helpless. Hours later, he remained beside her bed, refusing to leave, refusing to sleep, refusing to believe this was the end. Elara's condition continued worsening. Each hour stole more of her strength. Each hour brought her closer to death. Finally, she opened her eyes. Weakly, slowly. Adrian immediately leaned forward. Relief flashed across his face, yet tears quickly followed, because he could see the truth. She was fading, and there was nothing he could do. For several moments neither spoke. Then Adrian finally broke. Every wall he had built over the years collapsed. Every emotion he had hidden escaped. His regret, his guilt, his heartbreak, his love, everything. I was wrong. His voice trembled. I was wrong about you. Tears filled his eyes. You were innocent. His hands tightened around hers. I should have trusted you. More tears followed. I should have fought for you. The pain in his voice filled the room, but most of all, he lowered his head. And this is the truth I've been too afraid to admit. Elara watched him quietly. Adrian looked into her eyes and finally spoke the words buried inside his heart. I never stopped loving you. Silence. Beautiful. Heartbreaking silence. The confession hung between them, 3 years late, yet completely sincere. A tear slipped down Elara's cheek, not because she doubted him, but because she believed him, and that somehow hurt even more, because it might already be too late. Suddenly, the palace trembled. A powerful shockwave exploded through the walls. Windows shattered. Screams echoed throughout the corridors. Everyone jumped to their feet. The room shook again. A terrifying energy swept across the kingdom. Then a deep voice echoed throughout the palace. Ancient, cold, powerful. A voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. So, the voice laughed, slowly, darkly. At last the truth has surfaced. Every healer froze. Every guard turned pale. Even Adrian felt a chill crawl down his spine, because he recognized that voice. A voice he had trusted his entire life. A voice respected throughout the kingdom. A voice nobody would ever suspect. The mastermind had finally revealed himself. As the palace doors slowly opened, an elderly figure stepped through the shadows, and when Adrian saw who it was, his entire world stopped. Impossible. The palace doors slowly opened. Every eye turned toward the entrance. Silence swallowed the room. Even the healers stopped breathing. The figure stepping from the shadows was not a stranger. He was not an enemy from another kingdom. He was not some forgotten villain hiding in the darkness. He was someone everyone knew, someone everyone respected, someone trusted by kings for decades. Elder Magnus, the royal elder, the kingdom's most honored advisor, the man who had guided Adrian since childhood, the man who had stood beside his father, the man who had helped raise him. Adrian stared in disbelief. No, the word barely escaped his lips. It can't be you. Magnus smiled, a calm smile, a terrifying smile, the kind worn by a man who no longer cared if the truth was discovered. Oh, Adrian, the elder slowly stepped forward. You were always easier to manipulate than I expected. Shock rippled through the room. The council members stared. The guards looked confused. The healers exchanged frightened glances. Nobody could believe what they were hearing. The kingdom's most trusted elder was the mastermind. Adrian's hands clenched into fists. His wolf growled violently inside him. Years of trust shattered within seconds. You framed Elara. The accusation echoed through the chamber. Magnus didn't deny it. Instead, he nodded, calmly, proudly. Yes. Gasps filled the room. You cursed me. Yes. You destroyed our bond. Yes. Each answer felt like another blade sinking deeper into Adrian's chest. But Magnus wasn't finished. The elder's gaze shifted toward the unconscious Elara lying on the bed. Something cold entered his eyes. Something cruel. You want to know why? The room remained silent. Nobody dared interrupt. Magnus slowly raised his hand. Ancient symbols appeared in the air. Dark magic, forbidden magic, the same energy fueling the curse. The answer began 20 years ago. His voice echoed through the chamber. When I discovered the prophecy, the room froze. Prophecy? Adrian frowned. What prophecy? For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Magnus's face, as though speaking the words still unsettled him. Then he laughed bitterly. The prophecy of the moon bloodline. The atmosphere changed instantly. Even the oldest healers turned pale. Magnus pointed toward Adrian, then toward Elara. The moon goddess chose both of you long before you were born. Shock spread throughout the chamber. The elder continued. According to the prophecy, the union between the Alpha King and his true mate would create the strongest bloodline in history. The room erupted with murmurs. Their descendants would unite the kingdoms. Their power would surpass every ruler before them. Their influence would reshape the future. Magnus's expression darkened, and that future would leave no room for men like me. Finally, the truth emerged. Not love, not jealousy, not revenge. Power, pure power. Magnus had feared becoming irrelevant, feared losing control, feared a future he could not manipulate. So he chose another path, a darker path. I destroyed your bond before it could reach its full potential. His voice carried no remorse. I planted lies. I bribed witnesses. I manipulated the council. I convinced Selena to play her part. Luna lowered her head. Tears filled her eyes. For the first time, she looked genuinely ashamed. Magnus continued. When the rejection succeeded, I created the curse. The room fell silent. Then I waited. Years. Everything had been planned for years. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every tragedy, all orchestrated by one man. Adrian felt sick, not because of the lies, but because he realized how many opportunities he had missed, how many years he had wasted, how much pain Elara had suffered. And all because he trusted the wrong person. The confrontation erupted moments later. Magnus unleashed his magic. Dark energy exploded across the chamber. Guards were thrown backward. Several healers hit the floor. Council members screamed. Chaos consumed the room. But Adrian stepped forward. For the first time since the curse disappeared, his full strength returned. His wolf surged to the surface. Power radiated from him. The true Alpha King had returned. The battle shook the palace. Darkness clashed against silver energy. Ancient magic collided with Alpha strength. Walls cracked. Windows shattered. Thunder roared outside. The kingdom watched from below as light and darkness fought above them. Finally, Adrian reached Magnus. His fist struck the elder with devastating force. The dark magic shattered. The symbols dissolved. The elder collapsed. For the first time in decades, fear appeared in Magnus's eyes. His empire of lies had fallen. The truth was exposed. Justice had arrived. The guards seized him immediately. The kingdom's greatest traitor was finally defeated, yet nobody celebrated, because another battle was still being lost. Elara. Her condition continued worsening. The curse had damaged her far more than anyone realized. Every healer worked tirelessly. Every remedy failed. Every spell weakened. Nothing helped. Hours passed. Then another. And another. The room grew quieter. More hopeless. The reality became impossible to ignore. Elara was dying. Adrian refused to leave her side. The king who once rejected her now sat beside her bed day and night, ignoring food, ignoring sleep, ignoring his duties. Nothing mattered except her. The kingdom watched in silence. Many cried, because they could see the truth. The Alpha loved her. He had always loved her, and now he was about to lose her. Near midnight, one of the oldest healers approached Adrian. His face looked troubled. "Your Majesty." Adrian immediately stood. "What is it?" The healer hesitated, then quietly handed him a journal. Elara's journal. Confused, Adrian opened it. The pages contained her research, her notes, her findings, everything she had discovered about the curse. Adrian turned page after page, then suddenly froze. His eyes widened. "No." He continued reading, faster, desperately. Then tears filled his eyes, because he had just discovered something nobody knew. Not the healers, not the council, not even Magnus. Only Elara. The truth about the ritual, the truth about her sacrifice, the impossible thing she had done. Hours earlier, when she transferred the curse, she had secretly altered the ritual. The transfer was never her true goal. It was merely part of a much larger plan. Elara realized something none of the healers understood. Magnus's dark magic was permanently connected to the curse. As long as the curse existed, his forbidden power would survive. Even if he was imprisoned, even if he was defeated, his darkness would eventually return. So Elara made a choice nobody knew about. During the ritual, she absorbed not only the curse, she absorbed every trace of Magnus's dark magic, every spell, every connection, every source of power. Then she destroyed it. All of it. Forever. Adrian stared at the journal, his hands trembling, his vision blurred, because suddenly he understood. Elara hadn't only saved him, she had not only saved their kingdom, she had saved future generations. She had ended Magnus's darkness forever, at the cost of her own life. The impossible thing she did wasn't heal the Alpha King. It was sacrificing herself to ensure evil could never rise again, and she had done it quietly, without seeking recognition, without seeking praise, without expecting anything in return, because that was who she was: selfless, brave, extraordinary. A tear rolled down Adrian's cheek, then another, then another. Slowly he sat beside her, taking her hand, holding it against his heart. The room watched silently. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The strongest alpha in the kingdom looked completely broken. "I was supposed to protect you," his voice cracked. "But you protected all of us." More tears followed. "I should have chosen you." His fingers tightened around hers. "I should have trusted you." The room grew emotional. Several healers wiped away tears. Even the guards looked away, unable to watch. Adrian lowered his forehead against her hand, and for the first time since becoming king, he cried openly, not as a ruler, not as an alpha, simply as a man losing the woman he loved. Then suddenly, the healing monitor crystal flickered. The room froze. One healer gasped. Another rushed forward. Adrian looked up. Fear exploded inside him, because he saw it too. The crystal was fading. Fast. Too fast. The final moments had arrived. Everyone held their breath. Elara's chest rose once, then again, then slowly stopped. Silence. Terrible, heartbreaking silence. The monitor crystal went dark. The healer checked her pulse. His face turned pale. Then he looked toward Adrian and shook his head. The room shattered into grief, because the woman who saved the Alpha King, the woman who saved the kingdom, the woman who destroyed the darkness forever, had given everything she had. Adrian felt her hand grow still inside his, and as the first tear hit the sheets beside her, Elara's heartbeat stopped. Silence. The entire healing chamber stood frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody even seemed willing to breathe. The reality was too painful, too cruel, too unfair. Elara's hand rested motionless inside Adrian's. The woman who had sacrificed everything. The woman who had saved him. The woman who had saved the kingdom was gone. For a long moment, Adrian simply sat there, staring, waiting, praying, as though refusing to accept what every healer in the room already knew. The monitor crystal remained dark, the room remained silent, and Elara remained still. A healer finally stepped forward, carefully, respectfully. "Your Majesty." Adrian didn't look up. The healer swallowed. "We should prepare." "No." The single word cut through the room. Sharp, broken, final. The healer immediately fell silent. Nobody dared argue, because everyone could see it. The Alpha King wasn't ready to let her go, and perhaps he never would be. Hours passed. The sun disappeared. Darkness covered the kingdom. Candles illuminated the healing chamber. Still Adrian remained beside her, refusing food, refusing sleep, refusing to leave. The kingdom mourned. Outside the palace, wolves gathered in silence. Flowers filled the gates. Candles lined the streets. Even wolves who had never met Elara grieved her loss. Stories spread quickly. The healer who saved the alpha, the rejected mate who gave her life, the woman who protected an entire kingdom. For the first time in years, everyone finally understood who she truly was, and it made her loss even harder to bear. Inside the healing chamber, Adrian gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. 1,000 memories flooded his mind. Their first meeting, their first smile, their first dance, the day their wolves recognized each other, the future they almost had. Then came the painful memories, the rejection, the heartbreak, the years apart, every mistake, every regret, every moment he wished he could change. Tears filled his eyes again. If the moon goddess is listening, his voice cracked. I'd give anything. His hand tightened around hers. Anything. The room fell silent. The words lingered in the air. Then something unexpected happened. A warm breeze swept through the chamber. The candles flickered. The atmosphere changed. Several healers frowned, confused. One of them slowly looked upward. The ceiling had begun glowing. Soft silver light poured into the room. Everyone stood. Shock spread instantly. The light grew brighter, brighter, brighter still, until the entire chamber shimmered with moonlight. Even though it was midnight, even though no moonlight should have reached that room, gasps erupted. The energy felt familiar, ancient, sacred, divine. The moon goddess. The room fell to its knees. Everyone except Adrian, because he couldn't take his eyes off Elara. The silver light slowly surrounded her body, gentle, warm, beautiful. The atmosphere became almost magical. Then a voice echoed softly throughout the chamber, not spoken aloud, but heard inside every heart. A voice filled with compassion. A voice older than time itself. The greatest strength is not power. Silence. The greatest strength is sacrifice. More silence. This child chose love over vengeance. The silver light brightened. She chose mercy over hatred. The room trembled. She chose others before herself. Tears filled countless eyes. Then the voice spoke once more. And such a heart deserves its reward. Suddenly, the silver light entered Elara's body. The chamber exploded with energy. Everyone shielded their eyes. The power was overwhelming. Then, everything became still. The light disappeared. The room fell silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Several seconds passed. Then suddenly, a sharp gasp filled the room. Adrian froze. His heart stopped because the sound came from her. Elara. Her chest rose, then again and again. Color returned to her face. Warmth returned to her skin. Slowly her eyes fluttered open. For a moment she looked confused. Then her gaze found Adrian. The room erupted. Cheers, crying, laughter, relief. The entire kingdom would later remember that moment forever. The moment hope defeated despair. The moment love defeated death. The moment the rejected mate returned. Adrian couldn't speak. For several seconds he simply stared, unable to believe what he was seeing. Then tears streamed down his face, and before anyone could stop him, he pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly, as though afraid she might disappear again. This time, Elara hugged him back, and for the first time in years, everything felt right. Months passed. Peace returned to the kingdom. Magnus's followers were arrested. His dark magic vanished forever. The kingdom slowly healed, and so did Adrian and Elara. For the first time, they allowed themselves to rebuild what had once been broken. No lies, no secrets, no misunderstandings. Only honesty, only trust, only love. Every day brought them closer. The entire kingdom watched, and for once, everyone was cheering for them. Then came the day nobody expected, a grand ceremony unlike any before. Thousands gathered before the royal palace. Nobles, warriors, families, visitors from neighboring kingdoms. Everyone wanted to witness history. The enormous courtyard overflowed with people. Excitement filled the air. Flowers decorated every path. Silver banners waved proudly above the crowd. At the center stood Adrian, dressed in royal attire, yet strangely nervous. His gaze searched the crowd. Then finally she appeared, Elara, more beautiful than ever. The moment she stepped forward, the crowd erupted into applause, not because she was the alpha's mate, but because she had earned their respect, their admiration, their love. Adrian smiled, a real smile, the kind nobody had seen in years. Slowly he stepped toward her. The crowd became silent, waiting, watching. 3 years ago, this same kingdom had witnessed a rejection, a heartbreak, a tragedy. Today they would witness something very different. Adrian took Elara's hands. His voice carried throughout the courtyard. 3 years ago. Silence. I made the worst mistake of my life. The crowd listened carefully. I rejected the woman chosen for me by destiny. Emotion filled his voice. I allowed lies to blind me. He looked directly into her eyes, and I hurt the person who deserved my trust most. Many wolves wiped tears from their eyes, because everyone knew how true those words were. Adrian smiled softly, but today, his grip tightened gently. I choose the truth. The crowd held its breath. I choose love. More silence. I chose the woman who saved my life. His eyes never left hers. I choose my mate. Tears filled Elara's eyes. The crowd erupted. Cheers exploded throughout the kingdom, louder than thunder, louder than battle, louder than anything heard before. This time there was no rejection, no humiliation, no heartbreak, only love, only the truth, only destiny. Then Adrian lowered himself onto one knee. The entire kingdom gasped. Even Elara looked shocked. A king kneeling before his mate. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. He wasn't choosing her out of duty. He wasn't choosing her because of prophecy. He wasn't choosing her because he owed her. He was choosing her because he loved her, and always would. Will you spend the rest of your life with me? Elara laughed through her tears, then nodded. Yes. The kingdom erupted once more. Their bond finally healed. Their future is finally beginning, exactly as destiny intended. Months later, life felt peaceful. The kingdom prospered. The people were happy. And Adrian never missed an opportunity to remind Elara how much she meant to him. One morning, they visited the royal healer for a routine examination. Neither expected anything unusual. Until the healer suddenly smiled. A strange smile, the kind that immediately made Adrian suspicious. "What is it?" he asked. The healer laughed, then looked toward Elara. "My lady." Elara frowned. "Is something wrong?" The healer's smile widened. Quite the opposite. Confusion filled the room. The healer finally delivered the news, a piece of news that would change everything. The future alpha heir is on the way. Silence. Complete silence. Then realization struck. Elara's eyes widened. Adrian froze. Neither spoke. Neither moved. Then suddenly, Adrian laughed. The happiest laugh anyone had ever heard from him. He pulled Elara into his arms, spinning her around. The room erupted with celebration. Because destiny had finally fulfilled the prophecy. Not through power, not through magic, not through fear, but through love. The very thing that had survived every lie, every betrayal, every curse, and every heartbreak. The Alpha King once rejected the mate chosen for him by destiny, but in the end, she became his greatest miracle.